Well, this just in. It's exciting. El Paso bus driver. She's going to see some misdemeanor battery charges. Whoa, I see. So, this was a story we did way back when about young Jack. And it's a very controversial story. People on the right, left, it really doesn't matter. There's people who are friends of the bus driver, and then there are people who are friends of Amanda, and it's really divided the community over there in El Paso. And I want to get to this story because Kaylin, I think is how you pronounce her name. She's the bus driver, and we obtained some cell phone videos this this bus driver actually uh, touching, laying hands, grabbing, and yelling at this kid on the school bus. So this was cell phone footage captured by a student on the bus, and good on that student. Kids are so smart and they're so incredible. When they feel something isn't right, the first thing they go for is their cell phone, and they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna start recording this, so that way I can tell my mom, my dad. I've gotta tell an adult about this, but they're not going to believe me." Um, so they grab their cell phone, and this unknown student grabs the cell phone, captures Galen, the bus driver, grabbing Drac by the head and yelling at him on the school bus. And, I mean, this just in, we saw, uh, in Woodford County that they're pushing charges against her for misdemeanor battery. It says right here, misdemeanor uh, battery makes physical contact. So we've got that story to get to today. Um, I think that it's interesting that we also are seeing this headline come across the desk. A former U High teacher and football coach also arrested on a battery charge. Now, battery in the state of Illinois is defined interestingly. I'll put it that way. There's a definition for battery in the state of Illinois that I think is important to read, and I, I, this all boils down to this. It all boils down to this: get your kids out of public school. Get your kids out of public school. Teach them at home. I don't care how you got to make that work. You have to. Um, And, Caitlin, she might be a great bus driver. She might be a great person. I've heard she's an awesome person in the community. However, uh, you can't lay hands on a child and you can't make contact with a child in a provoking way. I think that's the language of the misdemeanor battery. You can't lay hands on somebody and provoke them in some sort of violent way. And I'll just play it here for you before we get into the rest of today's show. You guys can see me live in the studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'm going to play the video for you so you can watch it on the screen. You can hear the threatening sounds in this El Paso bus driver's voice. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
If I say something to you, you answer me. Do you hear me? Do you want to go to the office when you get into school? Do you want to go to the office? Okay, we'll just go to the office.
So I want to make this clear. I have no issue disciplining children. However, you get into some really gray area when you have bus drivers and teachers disciplining children and not the parents themselves. The public school system is designed to fail. Okay. The only people who should be punishing your child in that way should be you. The only person who uh, praises your child in a certain way should be you. This is what you have to deal with as a parent who sends your kid to public school. So I am glad to hear that justice is being served. Amanda Wilson was the mother of young Jack, specifically for the El Paso incident. She really was trying to get people to listen to her. We did. Cities 92.9, I think we had the exclusive reporting on this story, and eventually that led to some sort of charges after we made public the actions of this bus driver. And at the time, Brian Kurtz, the superintendent of the El Paso School District. He said those actions will not be tolerated by the school district. Now, from what I understand, she is still employed through the district. She was suspended for a little bit of time, from what I understand, the superintendent, but there were talks about the McLean County State's Attorney, Erica Reynolds. She said that the case was under a review at the time, and there was a case to crimes against children. That's where she referred the case out in McLean County. But it looks like Woodford County, which was originally where she had went. She went to those officers in Woodford County because that's where the incident happened on the bus. They were in Woodford County, uh, and that was originally where she wanted these charges to be pressed. And yeah, here we go. Another story of a public school teacher laying hands on your children. We've got Michael Troll. He was arrested by Illinois State University police on Tuesday. The ISU police responded to the school that afternoon following a report that Michael Troll, working as a substitute teacher, placed his hands on a student in a classroom. You can't do that. Okay, there's just you can't. You can't. And I think you all know that I went to school for a couple of years to try to become a teacher, and there was a classroom that I was observing. I really wanted to work with children who had some learning disabilities because I thought I had a gift for that. And I was doing some observation hours, and I'll never forget it. This kid was very much a troubled child, right? And he was throwing things and yelling things at this girl, and I realized in that moment, I can't physically touch this kid, I can't yell at this kid and give him the discipline that he needs, but he needs it in this moment right now, and I can't do that. And the same thing happened to me, in a different way. This little girl runs up and she just hugs me every single day, when I'm doing my observation hours, and, you know, my observation, director, the teacher in the classroom when I was doing my observation hours, she comes up to me and she says, "You gotta be careful about that kind of stuff." She goes, "There's just a lot of, things out there that people can accuse you of if you hug a small child, in a loving way. Kids need certain things during the day, and they're there for 8 hours a day. Maybe they need a hug, maybe they need a talking to, or maybe they need to be physically disciplined, but you're not there to do it. So you've placed these children in the hands of these adults, who understand that. We all have a biological innate sense of, "Hey, I need to care for this child in this way. I need to discipline this child. I need to show love to this child and affection to this child." Um, in this moment, but I can't do that because I'm not their parent. And I realized that the public school system is garbage and it has no place in America, and it never should have a place here in America. They've distorted it and they've made it their own, these teachers' unions, which brings me to the other story, District 87, right? I've made a story about the District 87 educators getting an email where they were told, "Hey, don't tell the parents if their children are getting bullied for their gender identity. Don't tell the parents about their gender identity at all costs. Do not out that child's gender identity to the parent because we are going to assume as a school district and as the teachers union that their parents are going to be abusive and not affirm their gender identity." And I just love this because there's a District 87 teacher out there, or an employee, and then there's a teacher, and they're together, they're married. It's the Hopper family, and the Hopper family had the ability to go cut their daughter's breasts off and transition their child from female to male. They had the ability to do that. Why? Because they have the ability to get their daughter's gender identity, uh, and have that conversation about transitioning their child with their child, because that information wasn't withheld from them. Now, could you imagine? if you're a parent and your child is questioning and wants to go chop their breasts off or something like that, and you don't get told, hey, little Timmy wants to go by Tammy in the classroom. Your teacher has the teacher is instructed to not tell you about that. They're trying to take your kids away from you, pull them out of public school. All right, I wanted to touch on those two local stories today because there was developing stories about young Jack. He was grabbed by this bus driver, and the mother has been trying to get justice. It looks like there's some misdemeanor charges out of Woodford County for that bus driver, and then there's also some misdemeanor battery charges for a school teacher at U-High, Michael Troll. He coached football, and he placed his hands on a student. You can't do that in the public school system. Do you want to shift gears? This is what my story is about today. My first story, wanted to open with this. The Ukraine, okay, has suspended a trans military spokeswoman, man, I don't know. He's a man. Just goes by the name Sarah, and it's Sarah Ashton-Cirillo. And there's a pending investigation against this military trans spokesman. He's in Ukraine. And he gloated that Ukraine would hunt down and kill foreign journalists critical of the war. So Jack Posobiec, I listen to Jack Posobiec all the time. We've had Libby Emmon. She's the editor-in-chief here from the Post Millennial. She's been on the program a couple of times. Now, there was a kill list out there of American journalists who have been critical of the war, trying to get to the bottom of, hey, why are we sending Ukraine all of this money? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Why are we sending all of this money? What's going on in the war? You don't hear about Jack Teixeira anymore. What he found and what he released on his Discord server. You don't hear about that anymore. But this guy, he's a trans military spokesman for Ukraine. He had a kill list that he placed Americans' names on. Jack Posobiec's name was on that kill list. And Jack Posobiec is critical of the war. The Ukraine Territorial Defense Forces claimed that Sarah's actions and statements were not approved by the command of the TDF, the Territorial Defense Forces. The Defense Forces of Ukraine strictly observe the norms of international humanitarian law. So, yeah, that would be against humanitarian law, killing a journalist, a foreign journalist, for covering the war. Okay, so I want to play two clips for you. You guys can see me live in studio. You can watch Glenn Beck. That's the first clip I want to play with you. There's two very different reportings on this individual, Sarah. Okay, so he goes by the name Sarah. He's a transgender military individual, and there's two different types of people. There's the Glenn Becks of the world, and there's the mainstream media hacks. I want to share with you Glenn Beck, who you can hear on Cities 92.9, and the way he kind of reports about Sarah. Let's take a listen. Here he is.
It's real. We've checked it. No, this is really the Ukrainian spokesperson who just happens to be a trans person.
The teeth of the Russian devils will gnash ever harder, and their rabid mouths will foam in uncontrollable frenzy.
Stop.
He's
the
real.
rabid mouths are going to froth. They're going to. I'm going to give Russia such a hit in a minute. I'm going to finish this, and then I'm going to slap him across the face, all of Russia. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to look beautiful while I'm doing it.
Russia's war criminal propagandist.
So rightfully so, they're mocking this guy because he's a complete loser and a weirdo. He literally made a kill list and put American journalists on that kill list. And here he is saying that I'm going to make Russia's teeth gnash or whatever. I don't know exactly what he was saying, but he's a complete strange guy. And then you've got the mainstream. So back to back, let's take a listen to the mainstream reporting on this guy. being the military spokesperson for Ukraine. I think it's important to hear this like, right back to back. You guys can see the clips in studio if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
Working on the front lines in Ukraine is gaining national attention, also getting some recognition from officials in Las Vegas as well.
Sarah Ashton-Cirillo was honored for her work in Ukraine today at Las Vegas City Hall. She served as a war correspondent since March, and recently she enlisted as a combat medic, serving on the front lines with other soldiers. She originally went to Ukraine to write about the refugee crisis. Numerous lawmakers, including Governor Sisolak, Congresswoman Dina Titus, and Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, gave her certificates of recognition for her work overseas.
The reasons I'm fighting along with every other soldier are the reasons that the people in the United States and elsewhere can enjoy the lives they have here.
And this week, she also met with members of Congress and was even asked to give one of her military uniforms to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C.
A local reporter working on the front line.
There you have it. So, side by side, there are two types of people in the world. There's the types of people who say, the guy who's threatening to kill American journalists and puts them on a kill list for being critical of the war. Yeah, we're going to make fun of that guy and we're going to call him out for his baloney. And then there's the other types of people. The people who will praise him and give him all kinds of recognition on the mainstream media channels. There's two types of people, and I hope you know what type you are. I know that I'm the Glenn Beck type. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to make fun of that weirdo because he's a nut, and he's talking about killing people because they don't like the war. And I want to point this out. I've got a poll here. And it talks about the support of the war. If he had it his way, everybody would die because I'm telling you right now, there is no support for the war. I mean, a lot of people, do you support the continued U.S. funding in Ukraine? There was a vote, Just the News did it, and there was a strong disapproval. 84% of people polled in this poll, the Just the News poll, said, no, I strongly disapprove. We should not be sending funding to Ukraine. The amount of people who strongly approved was 2%. So there you have it. 84% of people. If this guy had his way, everybody would be dead. Good morning, folks. Hey, if you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. Coming up first, we've got to talk about it. Joe Biden, he's planning to announce the first ever federal gun control office. So it's a gun control office. And I want to make a quick note here. Hunter Biden was indicted on gun charges. I think that that's important uh, to note. So Joe Biden planning to announce his first ever federal gun control office. So it's an office. Next, I want to talk about Hunter Biden because there was a mugshot taken, and that mugshot has not been released to the public. What's so special about the mugshot that they don't want us to see? I want to know what the mugshot looks like. So I've got a clip from Jesse Waters that you guys got to listen to. Plus, New York City removing George Washington statues as part of this new reparations plan. So Trump in 2017, he predicted this. He said they're going to start with, Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson. Who's next? Washington, Jefferson, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. So Donald Trump predicted that back in 2017. I'll be right back. This is the Morning Buzz. Go ahead, smash that like button. Russell Brand. Now, he used to be the darling of the media. He was a darling of the media, celebrity industrial complex. Okay, he was a darling of the media. He was doing Netflix specials. He starred in all of these major releases. He was in these A-list comedy shows. I mean, he was the darling. What changed? Well, Russell, he started hosting a podcast with Tucker Carlson, and then he started speaking out against the war machine and against the vaccine. That's a big no-no. And for that, they're going to ruin his life. You don't speak out against the war, and you don't speak out against the vaccine. If you do, then we're going to come after you with all of these alleged sexual assault accusations from 4 unnamed women from over a decade ago. Or if you're Sarah Ashton-Cirillo, the military spokesman, woman/man, he's transgender. He pretends to be a woman. If you're him, then you're going to write up a kill list and put foreign journalists, American journalists on that kill list. We should not be giving a dime to Ukraine. We have American journalists on a kill list of this American spokeswoman. Man, if you don't agree with the war, if you don't agree with the vaccine narrative, you're SOL. They are going to ruin your life. In the 6 o'clock hour, what do I want to get to? Well, Joe Biden, he's planning to announce this first ever, it's a federal gun control office. It's an office that he is creating. And I want to make a quick note here. Hunter Biden, his son, is currently, he was indicted on gun charges. And he's got to answer to those gun charges. I want to make that clear. So he's sitting there, Joe Biden, creating this federal gun control office. If Joe Biden was that against guns, wouldn't you think that he'd be all for Hunter Biden serving 10 plus years? I think the charges that he's been indicted on, an average person, you or I, if we were to be indicted on those same charges, we'd be serving probably like 5 to 10 years. So they're felony charges. We're going to be talking about that. Plus, Hunter Biden, he's got a mugshot out there that hasn't been released to the public. I want it. I want to know what's so special about the mugshot that they think that, or that they don't want us to see it. There's obviously something special about this mugshot because they don't want us to see it. Then I got to tell you about New York City because they're removing George Washington statues as part of this reparations plan. And I love that Donald Trump called this out back in 2017. They were removing things like Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson. They were removing these statues. And Donald Trump, he goes, who's next? Washington, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. So he called it back in 2017. that they would start removing history, erasing history. All right, so let's get into it. President Joe Biden, he's expected to announce the creation of the first ever federal office of gun prevention or gun violence prevention. So this is going to drop on Friday, of course, because they want to news dump it on Friday. Really what this means, this office of gun violence prevention, what it is, it's gun control. Okay. The move would be a victory for gun control advocates and gun control activists who know nothing about gun laws and who have probably never even touched a gun in their life. Okay. According to Politico, gun groups have called on Biden since he's been elected to take action, while activists see it as a necessary step for an assault weapons ban and universal background checks because they believe this office will assist on gun policy issues across the federal government. So these gun groups, these gun control activists, they say, hey, Joe, you need an office. You need to employ a bunch of people for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're going to go around the country and we're going to help you. It's like a lobbying group, really. It's we're going to help you craft policy, so that way you can bring it to a federal scale. Stephanie Fieldman, she's a top Biden aide. She's expected to lead the new office. Now, there's another guy. He's the Community Justice Action Fund's Greg Jackson. And then there's another fellow, Every Town for Gun Safety's Rob Wilcox. These guys are going to be leaders. They are leaders of two prominent gun control groups. Okay. And they hold key roles. They're going to hold key roles in this new office that he's creating. And I want to make this clear. These are a bunch of unelected officials who are going to decide the fate of your freedoms. So I really think that this is a testament to survivors, impacted communities pushing for years of the administration to do this. An anonymous source with direct knowledge of the plan told Politico. So they are leaking out that this is going to be a thing, an office that is dedicated to taking away your guns. Biden has made it his mission to curb Second Amendment rights. Okay, that's his mission. Last year, he ratified the first major federal gun control bill in 30 years. It's called the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. It's much like J.B. Pritzker's gun grab. I think his gun grab is called Safer Communities Act. I forget exactly, Illinois Safer Communities Act or something like that. So he's got one too, JB. And by JB, I mean Joe Biden. The act provides funding for state red flag laws, which are crap, and expands background checks for gun purchasers. So, John Lott, who is the president of Crime Prevention Research, and Thomas Massey, who represents Kentucky's 4th Congressional District and is the co-chair of the Second Amendment Caucus, said that this innocuous-sounding Bipartisan Safer Communities Act will radically change gun ownership, and that this will implement universal background checks on all gun purchases and track virtually everyone who obtains a gun. Hopefully this legislation will be stopped, or is going to stop people like Hunter. Yeah, Joe, is this legislation going to stop people like your son? It should. No. It's not for me. It's for thee. It's not for me and my own family. No. We get to break the laws all day long. Hunter Biden is currently facing charges related to false statements made on a federal application to purchase a firearm. If you or I were to do that, we'd probably be serving 5 to 10 years minimum. The charges related to a time in 2018 when he claimed that he was clean of drugs to purchase a handgun. But it turns out he actually was a crack cocaine addict at the time. And he admitted that in his book. He wrote a book about his crack cocaine use. And obviously the real problem is not with the guns. It's a problem with the criminal thugs taking over Democrat cities and turning them into war zones. Look no further than Chicago. Look no further than San Francisco, New York City. In January, a coalition of 117 groups sent a letter to the president demanding the creation of a federal office for gun violence prevention, claiming that gun deaths impact Black and Brown communities. About 6 in 10 crime guns, 6 in 10 crime guns seized by the Chicago police originated from gun shops outside of Illinois, according to a 2017 report. 6 in 10. Okay, so that's 60% of guns. They come from shops outside of the state of Illinois. Law enforcement defines crime guns as those that are illegally possessed, used, or suspected to be used in furtherance of a crime. Okay, so since 2013, the Chicago Police Department has recovered 7,000 crime guns each year. These are illegally possessed. These are not legal. These are illegally possessed firearms. One study even said that young men living in Chicago's most most violent neighborhoods, young men living in those most violent neighborhoods in Chicago, I'd imagine like the South and West Side, faced more risk of dying from a shooting than soldiers at war. Chicago has some of the most strict gun control laws in the nation. Okay, Illinois has probably the most strict gun. I don't think that, I mean, maybe California and New York have something similar to that of the assault weapons ban, the high capacity magazine thing that just was upheld by our Illinois Supreme Court. But look, people are killing each other left and right. Illinois requires things like universal background checks. There's bans on ghost guns. There's bans on guns that have higher capacities than 15 rounds. There's no open carry. There's no, I mean, this is ridiculous. All these things that leftists love, we have here in the state of Illinois, but yet look at Chicago. But obviously that does not work because criminals don't give a crap about your gun laws. Okay, they're criminals. It's so dumb how progressives really try to claim that guns are the problem and not criminals. It's a joke. And here's the thing. There's a fundamental difference between people like me and you and them. Fundamental difference. We believe that human beings have the capability to be evil and that they are capable of heinous crimes and that they have the capability that evil exists, and through sin people can be evil. People can be evil. Now they think that people are inherently good, and if we throw enough money at it, or if we create enough legislation, or if we treat them nicely, and if we give them counseling, then eventually they're going to be okay. Eventually they'll be good because humans are good and there's no such thing as evil. That is stupid. Evil exists. When people die in a car crash, we don't call it car violence because cars don't kill people. People driving cars kill people. It appears the Biden administration is very confused. The intention of the Second Amendment was not meant to give people the right to bear arms. That was already given to us by God. It was meant to stop the government from trying to take that away. That Second Amendment right is endowed by a creator. They cannot take it away. Okay, they literally can't. Go ahead, create an office filled with a bunch of unelected bureaucrats that you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to, because that makes total sense and totally doesn't seem like they're trying to take away our freedoms. I do have to take a break. Pundits, we are demanding, there are conservative pundits out there. I'm demanding for the release of the Hunter Biden mugshot after CNN revealed that the first son was fingerprinted and he had his mugshot taken when he was in court in July. But where is it? Where is it? I want it. I want the mugshot. I'm going to be back next on The Buzz. Come and take them, Dark Brandon. Yeah, I'd love to see them come and take it. Uh, all this law does is hurt law-abiding citizens. None of these laws will actually stop criminals, and they know that. Yeah, really what it is, what I think it is, they're creating this office, they're filling it with a bunch of unelected bureaucrats. These people are friends of the Democrat Party, these gun control groups are friends, they're activists. It's really quite simple, I think that we give the Democrat Party way too much credit. Really, what they're all about is bumping elbows and giving jobs to their friends. That's what it is. So they want to give jobs to their friends, and they're going to fill this office full of gun control activists who have in the past helped them get the vote out. And this is a way of thanking them for getting the vote out for the Democrat Party. So these gun control activists are going to be probably paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're unelected bureaucrats, and he's creating this federal office, the first of its kind, to just go around the country and do their activism. But this time, they're doing their activism for money, taxpayer money, and not for free. Okay, so they're going to be doing activism for the Democrat Party and for their principles. But Joe Biden is using his office, using the power of the president to create this office to give all of their friends a nice, healthy check every month. So that's what this is all about. It's all about money. At the end of the day, it's all about money and power. It's not about the guns. They don't care. They don't care about gun violence. If they actually cared, they'd start talking about how Black and brown communities are affected by gun violence. Yes, their homicide victims, it's 54%. They make up 54% of the homicide victims, Black and brown communities. Want to know why that is? It's because of fatherless homes. It's because the nuclear family is under attack by the Democrat Party, and the Black community has fell for it. I'm gonna be honest, you've fallen for it. Uh, Even white communities, Hispanic communities, they are falling for this narrative that the nuclear family is bad and it's not something that you should push for um, in life. That is your sole purpose is to be a part of a family unit. God tells us to do things. A couple of things. He doesn't ask that much of us. It's you know, make more Christians and, and be devoted to me, right? And witness to other people. Love me and love people. And the easiest way to create more Christians is by having a family and being a Christian family, right? And teaching your children to be Christian. Um, very simple type stuff. And, it's a real shame that we have decided to blame guns and not the fact that these young men, young Black men, are falling into this trap of not having discipline, not having honor, not having dignity, not having something to live for. So, people who have something to live for and have hope in Jesus, they don't go and do this stuff. You want to know why? Because they have hope. You don't just go pop people because you think that, you have some sort of future. Okay? No, these people are the worst of society. They think that they don't have a future because they don't have hope in Jesus. It's not to say that they will never have hope in Jesus, but I don't want to mess around and find out. These people do need to be locked up, and they need uh they truly need Jesus in order to come back to some sort of, hey, I have hope in life. I'm not going to go out and pop everybody that I see kind of thing. We do have to get to a couple of things today. Locally, there was that U-High teacher who he was a former full-time teacher. Now he's a substitute, and he was at the University High School in Normal, and he's accused of battery for a classroom incident on Tuesday. Now, this just in, the El Paso bus driver, which we exclusively reported on, she is also facing battery charges as well. Battery and physical contact, it's a misdemeanor through the Woodford County Police. So we're going to talk about that. And I opened up the show this morning. I said, get your kids out of public school. Okay. There was a reason why I did not continue my path to become an educator, because children are not designed to receive discipline or even affection from other adults other than you. And if you don't want them to receive discipline and other affection from other adults, that you don't trust, right? Obviously, you don't know who your parent or your kid's teacher is. You should be building that relationship, but a lot of parents don't have time to know every single teacher that your kid comes in contact with on a daily basis. And middle school, high school, they've probably got about 6 or 7 teachers. So it's really hard to build a relationship with all 6 or 7 teachers when you're busy working. And I understand that. Whatever it takes, right? Get your kids out of there, because things like this happen and it's just biological. It's innate. What what adults do, they are tasked with the biological need or biological task of discipline and showing children affection. There's a balance between discipline and showing children affection and raising children. Okay, that's something that men, women have biologically ingrained in them. Hey, we have to discipline this child in this moment. This kid's acting out. I need to discipline this child. Whether that be laying some hands, a spanking on the butt. I don't know. I'm definitely not for abusing children. Okay, in any kind of physical way. Um, and I'm not for teachers touching children. And they have to understand that going into their profession that, hey, I am not the parent. Okay. And I cannot touch this child. They are not my kid. Um, and it's really tough to do. That's why I didn't do it. But if you decide to do it, then you need to swallow that pill and shut up and just not touch children, period. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. And all this morning, I've been kind of telling you about this Ukraine spokesperson. Sarah Ashton-Cirillo is his name. He goes by Sarah. He's a man pretending to be a woman, and he's the Ukraine military spokesman. And there's an investigation pending after he gloated that Ukraine would hunt down and kill foreign journalists who were critical of the war. So if you were against the war in any kind of way and you're a journalist and you're in Ukraine, you might be on the kill list that Sarah crafted. And she put Jack Posobiec's name. He's an American journalist and he's been very critical of the war, much like everybody else in the world. Okay, so poll after poll after poll after poll shows us that Americans strongly disapprove of the funding of this war. Do you support continued U.S. funding for Ukraine? Go ahead, shoot me a text 309-451-9299. You can even send me a message here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Throw it into the comments section. If you're watching, subscribe to the channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. 84% of people in this latest poll, it's just the news, they've got the poll, 84% strongly disapprove of funding for Ukraine. Okay, so if this Sarah individual had it his way, whew, everybody would die. Really, everybody would die. That's what he's all about. Now they have nixed him, essentially, so he is no longer the spokesperson because the Ukraine Territorial Defense Forces claimed that Sarah Ashton-Cirillo's statements, quote, were not approved by command of the Territorial Defense Forces. The Defense Forces of Ukraine strictly observe the norms of international humanitarian law. We should not be giving a dime to Ukraine if there are American journalists on kill lists crafted by this insane person, Sarah. Do want to shift gears. Let's talk about Hunter Biden and the mugshot. I do have to take a quick break, but you won't want to go anywhere because I have to talk about George Washington statues also being removed in New York City as part of their reparations plan. This is the buzz. It's fallen. The rain has fallen out there, fallen harder than Joe Biden down the stairs of Air Force One. I'll tell you right now. What's Joe Biden's favorite season? It's fall. All right, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We've got a lot to get to today. I can't believe that I haven't gotten to my stories. Now, one story that you guys are really going to like, I think, is this woke mayor in this really like conservative town. That's the funny part of it. The mayor's woke and she calls 911, and what she does is she snitches and she complains about these quote unquote far right activists outside of this Walmart. What these far right activists were doing outside of the Walmart really triggered this mayor. She called 911 on them. No, it was an emergency. Yes, she called 911 anyway. Yakima is where this is at. So Yakima mayor Janice Dicio, I don't know. She has hers in her on her now took him down. I mean, she took her down her Instagram page, but in her Instagram bio, she said, she was very clear about her pronouns. It's she, her, hers. So we do know this individual identifies as a woman. She called 911 knowing it was an emergency call. She said it. She said it wasn't an emergency, but she was worried about the far right activists standing outside of the Walmart. They were asked to leave, but didn't, and the police wouldn't do anything. So let's call her Mayor Karen, because that's really what she is. She's a Karen. Turns out it was perfectly legal for those far right activists to be standing outside of the store collecting signatures for six statewide ballot initiatives. So they were getting signatures, petitioning. Yes, collecting ballot signatures. That's how you get things, be it people or initiatives, onto a ballot for election day. So she was upset that they were actually, I don't know, doing democracy. Doing a democracy, as I would like to call it. Straight up, she calls the police, 911 actually. So it's quite wild. 911 call. So I've got the recording here of the 911 call that I'm going to be sharing with you on the stream. So we'll get to that. But yeah, Mayor Karen, she's big mad because some far right activists, they were standing outside of the store collecting signatures for a couple of ballot initiatives. I'm going to get to what the ballot initiatives were because we actually have those. And I'm just going to ask you if these are far right. Okay. Leftists listening, watching. I know you guys love to watch and listen because you guys are crazy. And look, I don't know why your eyeballs are glued to this program or your ears are glued to this program, but they are. I'm going to get to the ballot initiatives, and I'm just going to ask you: do you think these are far right initiatives? I don't think so. So this mayor clearly woke. She calls the police on these people who are collecting ballot signatures. I also do want to get to Michael Troll. He coached football and wrestling at U High. He placed his hands on a student during the noon hour on Tuesday, according to the Illinois State Police Chief Aaron Woodruff. So Woodruff said that the student was not seriously injured, so that's a good thing. I also have an update on the El Paso bus driver who laid her hands on a child as well. I have the video footage of that. These people, I don't know who Michael Troll is. I don't know who Caitlin is. All I know is that you can't lay hands on a child in a public school setting. You just can't. It doesn't matter if it's, and I think even affection. I was told in my observation hours, hey, you got to be careful about kids wanting to hug you. You got to be careful about disciplining children because that's not your job. It's the parent's job. And it's tough because you're with the kid 8 hours a day. What are you supposed to do? Not help raise that child? So public school, it just really sucks. I'll be back. I know you're gonna love this. This woke mayor. You'll never believe it. She actually calls 911 to snitch and complain about these so-called far right activists outside of this Walmart. And what's so funny, what were these far right activists doing? Well, I'll tell you in the 7:00 hour. That's next on the Morning Buzz. Yeah, imagine getting the police called on you for collecting signatures for ballots. and working for election teams. Is this even America? Yeah. And just wait until you hear the ballot initiatives. I mean, I'll ramble off a few of them. This is a ballot initiative that would roll back some restrictions on when police officers can engage in vehicle pursuits. Then the other one, to prohibit state agencies from imposing any type of carbon tax credit trading. So I don't know exactly what that means. I'd imagine um, if you don't emit carbon or something like that, if you maybe have like an electric car, the state can't give you a ton of money for doing that. Or for having an electric car, or electric car, or for maybe having solar panels. Then there was another one which would allow employees to opt out of the state's long-term care insurance program. So allow employees to opt out of the state's long-term care insurance program. Also to appeal the state's capital gains tax. Then there was another one which would prohibit state and local jurisdictions from imposing income taxes. Um, which and then there was another one which would allow parents of public school students to review instructional materials and students' records upon request. So, yeah, these are all extremely far right, I guess. Right? No. Fox News reports that these are the 6 so-called far right ballot initiatives that the far right activists um, were 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 collecting signatures for. So I went through these here, and I'll throw it in the comment section so you can read along when I get into it. If you guys are watching right now, go ahead and smash the like button. But you're so right, Ryan. I don't understand it. These are all far right ideas. These aren't even close to far right ideas. Um, Block some restrictions on when police officers could engage in vehicle pursuit. Uh, to prohibit state agencies from imposing any kind of carbon tax credit trading. I don't really know what that is. See, these leftists like to come up with all of these tax credits and reward people if they reduce their carbon footprint. Like, what's next? Are you going to start giving carbon tax credits to people who don't fart? Hey, I only farted 2 times today. My methane emissions are down. Give me money. Like they come up with all of this wacky stuff. Then there's even like some really basic ones, allowing parents of public school students to review some of the instructions upon request. So instruction materials, public school students to review instructional materials and student records upon request. So I want to see my kids' grades. Can I do that? Like, these are like not far right ballot initiatives. That's what's really funny about all of this. Go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to be back here on the Morning Buzz, also chatting about Hunter Biden. I really want that mugshot. There's also this weird thing in New York City where they are removing George Washington statues as part of this reparations plan. I don't know. I think it's hilarious that Donald Trump actually in 2017 is quoted here. He says, Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, who's next? Washington, Jefferson, so foolish. So Donald Trump called it. He predicted it. He was like, guys, they're going to start removing George Washington statues. And that's exactly what they're doing in New York City. They're erasing history. So, and it goes even further than that. So if they don't remove a statue, they're required to put some sort of plaque up next to that statue to indicate whether or not that person owned slaves as slaves at a period of time. So yeah, that's kind of bizarre. We're going to be chatting a lot about this El Paso bus driver caught on tape. We exclusively did that story. I'm very proud of that story. I think that it divides the community a lot. Caitlin sounds like she was a respected member of that community. However, there has to be tough conversations had. Are you going to continue to allow your child to go to public school? And then are you going to continue to get upset about the fact that these teachers lay hands on your kids? Okay. I to an extent, and I'm not sympathizing with people who are charged with misdemeanor battery. Um, I'm not sympathizing with those people at all. But these people, they're human, okay, and they're adults. And when you're dealing with children, there is a degree of like biological urges that you have to parent or to raise that child. It's called community, okay, and of course, if a child is acting out, you're going to want to discipline that child. If a child is wanting affection at that time, reaches out to give you a hug, you're going to want to hug that child. um, the problem is that you are a stranger and we're not actually community members. I don't know my teacher. I don't know my bus driver on a personal level. I don't have them over for dinner. They're not a part of my family. It used to be, we would all take turns teaching the children, and we were all close enough to where, hey, if Sally down the street punishes my little kid, my little Timmy, then I'm not too upset about it because I trust Sally. We don't trust these strangers. That's the problem. We literally put all of our trust in strangers to watch our children for 8 hours a day. It's a really messed up model, and I'm sick of people, complaining and I'm getting upset about this. But I'm glad that justice was served for Jack in this situation and in the U-High situation. We're back. We're going to get to a couple of local stories. So U-High, there was a football coach, a substitute teacher. He was a full-time teacher at U-High, and he laid hands on a child, and he's looking at charges of misdemeanor battery. I've got to tell you what battery, how it's specifically defined in the state of Illinois, and why he's being charged with it. His name is Michael Troll. So Michael Troll, he was picked up by the Illinois State University Police. The ISU police chief, Aaron Woodruff, he said that the kid was not seriously injured. So this is good news. The kid wasn't injured. And then I've got another story about almost the same thing over in El Paso. This bus driver, we exclusively did some reporting on this because we obtained tape of this bus driver grabbing this young 11-year-old kid on the bus by his head and yelling at him, which under the definition of misdemeanor battery, misdemeanor battery is provoking somebody in a violent way and making physical contact. That's a Class A misdemeanor. And it looks like the Woodford County Police are charging her in that. This Kay Lynn woman. So that's an update. He was grabbed on the bus by the bus driver in December of 2022, and his mother has been trying to get justice. And look, folks, I'm gonna chalk these two stories up for you. Get your kids out of public school. I've shared with you multiple times here on the program, The Morning Buzz. You can see me live in YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. That I did go to school for a couple of years to become a school teacher, and I decided to get out of it because of this reason. You cannot, in any circumstance, show affection in the way that a child might need affection. So I used to have this little girl in my student teaching days. She'd come up to me and she'd want to just hug me by my legs, and I'd give her a hug, and she was just very close to me. And then there was a child who was a troublemaker, and he'd throw tissue boxes. I remember this as plain as day. He'd take tissue boxes and throw them at all of the girls in the classroom. And these girls were, traumatized by that. And what I really wanted to do was just take him and, look, buddy, you got to stop and discipline him. But you can't. Okay. When you're a public school teacher, you cannot lay your hands on children for any reason, whether that's to show affection or to discipline. And what sucks about it is that kids, they're there for 8 hours a day. These are crucial years, crucial development years. Okay. They're there for 8 hours a day. When you send your child to a public school, you are, in a way, signing over your rights as a parent. It shouldn't be that way, but they've made it that way. Government has made it that way. School boards, being feckless losers, have made it that way, and they won't stand up for parental rights and pass legislation or ordinances. They don't pass these things that keep parental rights in the public school system. So in a way, you give up your rights as a parent when you send your kid for 8 hours a day. And humans, we have a biological innate feeling to either discipline children. We have a need to raise children. So in the olden days, it used to be community members raising kids. You'd send, your little Timmy over to Sally's house, and she might just smack him around a little bit if he acts out. And you were okay with that because there was a bond between you and Sally. Sally would come over for dinner. You trust Sally. See, with the public school system, you're sending your kids to strangers. Do you know your teacher? Have you had your teacher, or your kids' teacher over for dinner? Have you sat down at the dinner table with them? Do you, on a weekly basis, hang out with that teacher? Probably not. In fact, I'm willing to bet you might not even know the teacher's first name. Okay. And that's not, I'm not trying to rip on parents. I'm just telling you that that's the way the public school system is. And I got out of it because I'm not equipped. People have this biological, and there's good teachers out there who know, hey, I can't place my hands on a child. There is something called parental rights, and I'm a stranger to this child and a stranger to the parents. I've got to know my place. Okay. That takes a very strong person to do that. I am not. Biologically and innately, I wanted to raise children. Okay. That's just the way it goes. A lot of school teachers are women. And they have this biological innate. A lot of the school teachers, I don't know the studies or the statistics on this. I wouldn't doubt that a lot of them don't have children of their own. Okay. Some of them might not even have children of their own. So that biological urge to raise those children is even stronger because they don't have that outlet for their biological urges at home. So they bring it into the classroom. So this is my point. Pull them out. Pull them out. If there's not butts in the chairs, then they're not going to be getting their money. And that's bottom line. You just need to pull them out. I know that's really tough for you to hear, and I know that you're gonna hate me for it. But I'm just telling you the way I see it. I see this becoming a problem in communities all around Bloomington, Normal, McLean County, Woodford County. We've got the El Paso bus driver now on tape, and then we've also got this U-High former football coach, substitute teacher laying his hands on a child as well. And it's just going to continue because the model of public schooling sucks. All right, do have to shift gears. I didn't want to get onto that diatribe, but let's talk about this crazy mayor. Her name's Janice. Okay, so it's kind of like Karen, but not quite like Karen. So these alleged far-right activists were standing outside of a Walmart, and this mayor was so triggered that she actually called 911 on them. No, it was not an emergency. Yes, she called 911 anyway. So this Yakima, which is a very conservative area, mayor, her name's Janice, and it shouldn't shock you to know that in her Instagram page, which is now taken down, by the way, because as soon as somebody calls you out for your crap, then all of a sudden they'll start taking down their nonsense. But before she took down her Instagram profile, in her bio, she has she, her, hers, which is really funny. But she called 911 knowing it was an emergency, and she needed to speak with somebody right away. Far-right activists were standing outside of Walmart. They were asked to leave, but they didn't, and the police wouldn't do anything about it. They let them stay there. You want to know why? Because they were collecting ballot signatures. Okay, so Mayor Karen Janice, she it turns out it's perfectly legal for these so-called far-right activists to be standing outside of a store collecting signatures for 6 statewide ballot initiatives. Yes, collecting ballot signatures. That's how you get things, be it people or initiatives, on a ballot for election day. She's mad that they're doing, a democratic thing. They're pulling a democracy. And she's upset about that. You want to know why she's upset about democracy? Because she hates it, because she's a libby. She's a liberal. Okay. In fairness, I will say this. The mayor, Janice, claimed that the petitioners were being rude or aggressive. It's important to hear both sides. So let's take a listen to the 911 tape because this idiot calls 911. 911 calls are, are available to the public under a FOIA request. So let's take a listen to it. Here we go.
911. Hi, this is Mayor DCO. I know that this isn't an emergency call, but I need to talk to somebody. I've emailed the chief, but there's some far right-wing petitioners at Walmart, and they're not leaving after Walmart has asked them repeatedly to do so, and the police have not taken them off the premises.
We did have a call of that earlier. Who is this?
This is Mayor DCO.
Okay. Let me let you talk to my supervisor, but I do know that the officers have let them know that they would have to have a court order to have them removed.
It's
so I'll let you talk to
on
them.
private property?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know the legalities of that, but let me get you to my supervisor.
Okay.
Yes, that's just cool.
Hi, this is Mayor DCO, and I have had some constituents call me to tell me about some right-wing petitioners over at Walmart, and that Walmart does not want them on their property, and the police have come out and told them that they can't do anything about it. And I'm wondering, how can that be? If petitioners were on my yard, the police could take them out if they were in my private property.
I can just read you what this email I have from legal says, or if you want to talk to a sergeant, I can have them call you as well. But basically, it says under Washington law of right to access on private property for political purpose, it extends to the circulation of petitions.
I love it. I love it. So the police, they're just like, lady, the law says, Washington law says that these guys got a right to petition on private property here, and they need a court order to remove them. So what were these far-right activists? What were they petitioning for? Because I'm sure that was just crazy ballot initiatives, and these things that they were collecting signatures for, they've got to be absolutely nuts, right? Let's take a gander, shall we? Because I've got them. I've got them right here. One would roll back some restrictions when police officers can engage in vehicle pursuits. So, okay, we want cops to be able to chase somebody in a vehicle pursuit. Yeah, okay. So far, right. To prohibit state agencies from imposing any type of carbon tax credit trading. I don't know what that means. Carbon tax credit, I would imagine if you have like an electric vehicle, you get all kinds of tax credits and rebates and things like that. We've got that here in the state of Illinois. You get like $4,000 like every week for having an electric vehicle. No, I don't quote me on that. I don't know what the rebate is, but you get money for having an electric vehicle and their tax credits. So I don't know, maybe the number of farts that you let out, if you let out like maybe 1 or 2, you get like a bunch of money. Now the people who let out about 4 or 5, sorry guys, you're not getting the tax credit. Okay, your methane emissions are up way too high. You're not getting the money. Something like that, to that effect. So these guys out here at the Walmart were like, hey, we really want it to be fair, and we don't want these people to be getting a bunch of like tax credits for absolutely nothing. I don't want to pay for these people to have all this money. Then there's another one, which would opt out or allow employees to opt out of the state's long-term care insurance program. Whoa, so far right. To repeal the state's capital gains tax. Then there's another one, which would prohibit the state and local jurisdictions from imposing income taxes. And then there's another one, which would allow parents of public school students to review instructional materials and student records upon request. Hey, I want to look at my kids' grades. Can you give me my kids' grades, please? That's literally what this ballot initiative says. Hey, I want to see what you're teaching my child. Is it okay if I get some of the instruction materials that you've got? That's all this ballot initiative does. Oh man, these guys are so far right. It's insanity. Critics are calling the mayor woke, but allegedly the mayor and the city council are all nonpartisan positions. So It shouldn't be surprising even here. This is a conservative area. This is Yakima. Okay, there are conservative-ish, basic conservative initiatives. I wouldn't even say that they're super conservative. I mean, one of them, public schools. Hey, you want to see my kids' grades? It's pretty standard. Um, it's a very Republican area, so shocking. I know, but like many blue states, once you get away from like Seattle, this is in Washington, where people live all on top of each other in filth and crime, there's areas in the state that are actually very based, very conservative. So, in a statement, Mayor Karen Janis, she admitted that she was unaware of the nuances of the law at the time, and in hindsight, could have waited to hear from the police chief before calling 911. Yeah, you'd think. She also claimed that no one told the group that they couldn't petition, and it was certainly not my intention to stop them. Okay. All right. You just say whatever you need to say, lady. This contradicts her reasons for calling 911. Okay. She wanted it to be stopped. That's why she called 911. Unless she wasn't expecting the call to be made public. I mean, she's so stupid. Like that. This call is public. You call 911, it's public. She's ridiculous. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, a couple of local stories I want to get to. The U High wrestling football coach. He coached football and wrestling. I don't know what kind of guy he is, but I think that we need to have a conversation about, hey, should public school teachers lay hands on children at all? And is it possible for public school teachers to not lay their hands on children at all? Uh, I don't know. I don't know. I think that you'll have a lot of things to say about this. We're getting a lot of comments here in the YouTube chat. So find me. It's Cat Peterson 929 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe to the channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. I'll be back next. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. I would greatly appreciate it if you could smash the like button. That really helps me out. So we are going to be chatting a lot about this El Paso bus driver. It's very controversial for some odd reason. I don't know. To me, I don't think that public school teachers should be able to lay their hands on children. It used to be different back in the day because we actually trusted the school teachers and we made time to build that trust with our school teacher. Okay. So back in the olden days, it was a community. And you would have your teacher over for lunch, dinner. You would make that teacher or make that individual who's teaching your child uh, a part of your life, a part of your family. And then you yourself would take some time to teach children. And, it was all this community based teaching. I'm all for that. I think that, in all of these different subdivisions, there's got to be a way for, either the women or the men. I think that it's important to have male teachers as well to kind of create a schedule with their jobs and kind of move it around to where the teaching happens at different times of day at different households. Okay. So that's what I'm all about. I think that community based teaching is great. Homeschooling, something to that effect. I've seen it done. Okay. I actually have some very good friends. William Whitney is his name, and he has 12 children in Pontiac. Incredible story. And they're all their own children. And she has been having children for quite some time, and they all homeschool their own children. And she does a very good they've got desks, they've got biblical teachings, and they've distorted that whole separation of church and state. It's not separation of church and state, or from church. It's separation of, so there's a wall um, of separation from the government coming in and telling you what to worship. Okay. So, or what to subscribe to via religion. I'm not going to get into that today. Maybe on Conservative Cat, Saturday from 5 to 7, or Saturday from 5 to 6. I went down to 1 hour on Saturdays. I'll talk a little bit about the separation of church and state and how they've completely changed that and distorted it, and how you should be able to teach the Bible. Freedom of religion and freedom of religion does not just extend to the four, or stop at the four walls within your church and in your congregation. You should be able to teach biblical um, teachings in public school. Okay. So, in fact, you can even baptize kids in the sink. Okay. In the sink at the school bathroom. Okay. I truly do believe that there is nothing truly legal about this whole separation of church and state. They've really destroyed that. So I'm going to talk about that maybe on Saturday. So stick around for that. When I was in high school, I was in shop class and the teacher pulled my ear as hard as he could and um, called me Gertrude in front of everybody. Wow. And I never acted up in class after that. Yeah. So smash the like button if you grew up in an era where the teacher punished you. Uh, or gave you, my mom tells me all the time, she got the ruler. So it was like a ruler on your hand. We've taken a lot of that away now. Um, the problem with public school is that there is no true fathomable way to create a relationship with your teacher or with the teacher of your child. That's not their teacher growing up the whole time. They have different teachers. In fact, they've even got like 6 or 7 teachers when they're in middle school and high school. There's no possible way that you would be able to build a relationship of trust. So back in the day, I wouldn't doubt, Mark. I don't know if your parents had some sort of more of a better relationship, and I'm sure that they knew his first and last name, right? And knew of him as a community member. I'd love to chat more about it. But yeah, I would imagine that your parents were cool with it. Um, and that's why he did it. I don't know. But we've removed parents from the school system. And now it's just become this whole thing where teachers are deciding, hey, this is how I'm going to punish the kid. This is how I'm going to love this child, and I'm going to raise this child as my own. And we've removed parents completely from public school. And that was by design. Okay. They want to separate the children from their parents because it makes it easier for them to be indoctrinated into voting a certain way and into believing certain things that will ultimately keep the elitist up on top. Okay. So yeah, we've got a couple of stories of teachers being charged with assaults or with a battery, misdemeanor battery, a couple of teachers. And I think that it's just going to progressively get worse and worse. We're going to come after these teachers for laying hands on students. Um, and rightfully so, because you shouldn't as a public schools teacher. It's not of the norm. But that's the way the law reads now. I'll be back. Smash the like button and share this out with your normie friends. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate you being a part of the conversation too. So we've got all kinds of comments coming in via the YouTube channel. You can see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. Now we've got Mark here. He says, when I was in high school, I was in shop class, and then a teacher pulled me out by my ear as hard as he could, called me Gertrude in front of everybody. I never did act up in class after that. Yeah, I would imagine not. I got the paddle once back in middle school after acting out in class and sent to the office. And then I got my dad's belt when I got home. Whew. Yeah, so I'm not I'm not advocating for child abuse. And what this bus driver, I truly do believe, was wrong in El Paso. So this bus driver, there's footage from an unknown student's cell phone that was captured. We exclusively did reporting on this. And just Jack, he was allegedly cussing on the bus. I'm going to play this here for you. I think it's important. You guys can see the video itself on the stream. I recommend you go do that now. But here we go. Let's take a listen to the actual clip and let's watch what happened. Here we go.
If I say something to you, you answer me. Do you hear me? Do you want to go to the office when you get into school? Do you want to go to the office? Okay, we'll just go to the office.
Okay, so Amanda Wilson, she's the mother of Jack, and she was really trying to get some justice for Jack. And now, this just in, it looks like she is going to be facing some misdemeanor battery charges. Now, battery in the state of Illinois, it is defined as a provoking, if you provoke in some sort of violent way or aggressive way, and if you make physical contact. That is a misdemeanor battery charge. So we've got that story this morning, plus another story about Michael Troll, who coached football, wrestling at U High. He was a substitute teacher, and apparently he laid some hands on child. The student was not seriously injured um, at the U High school. And I'm just trying to make this point, folks. You got to pull the kids out of public school. You got to, because, like I said, human beings, they have this innate urge to discipline and to show affection. I told you the story about me being a student teacher. I went to school to be a teacher for a couple of years, and I got out of it because I couldn't do it. Um, it takes somebody in this society to really take a step back and say, hey, this is not a place, public school is not a place for me to raise children uh, as my own. Okay, so there is this innate feeling to want to raise children. If a child acts out, you want to discipline that child. If the child reaches out for a hug, you want to hug that child. Okay, that's just who we are as adults. Um, you want to raise children. And it used to be where we would take little Timmy over to Sally's house, your friend Sally, who comes over for dinner. You trust Sally, the child trusts Sally, and you guys both teach little Timmy. You teach him on Tuesdays, she teaches him on Fridays. And it used to be this really cool community thing where, hey, I don't care if Sally takes a ruler and smacks him around with a ruler on his hand. Okay. That's okay. She has permission to discipline my child. What has happened in public schools, we have removed parental guidance, but we've separated the children from their parents. And now public school teachers, bus drivers, people within the public school indoctrination camp, they have decided that they're going to raise their child, and they think that they can do it better than you. They don't involve you in the process. And to be frank with you, and you're not going to like it, parents have removed themselves from the process as well. Do you know your teacher's first name or your kid's teacher's first name? Have you invited the teacher over for dinner? Have you sat down, had a conversation about philosophical views, religion? Have you had a conversation with your teacher about those types of things? Of course not, because society doesn't allow you to, because you're so busy. All right, so yeah, that happened. Michael Troll, he's got was arrested for misdemeanor, although it'll be up to the McLean County State's Attorney's Office to decide whether or not to file formal charges. It looks like the Woodford County Police, they have filed some charges against the Kay Lynn bus driver out of El Paso. I know it's a very controversial topic, and like I said, I have no issue with disciplining children, no issue. However, it's not. And you have to involve the parents. Okay. It doesn't work in the public school system if you don't involve the parents in any kind of way. And if the parents feel like they're the outsider and you're the one who gets to make all the decisions about, uh, I'm going to show little Timmy some love today. I'm going to show him some discipline today. That you've taken the parents out of it entirely. And that's why they're peeved off. That's why this is unacceptable. It's not because I'm against disciplining children. But the law is clear in Illinois. If you provoke in a violent way, and if you make physical contact with the student, then you're going to be charged with misdemeanor battery. Bottom line, that's the way it goes. It's the way the cookie crumbles. And I got out of public school teaching because I knew that was the case. I had my observation teacher who I was in her classroom. She looks at me, this little girl, she just loved up on me and wanted a hug and kept wanting a hug every single day, right? Because that's what she needed. And the teacher, she says, you got to be careful about that stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's a crazy world we're living in. And yeah, I got out of it because I'm not capable of not being able to act biologically and innately and raise that child. And it used to be where you're totally fine with that. Parents would be totally fine with raising other community members raising their kids, but you don't know these teachers. That's what I'm getting at. All right, I do have to take a quick break in just a little bit, but I do want to tell you about this transgender individual in the Ukraine army military. So the Ukraine actually suspended this guy. His name is Sarah Ashton-Cirillo, and I know what you're thinking. Him? Yes, he goes by Sarah. He's a transgender military spokesman, and there's an investigation right now because guess what the guy did? He actually gloated that Ukraine would hunt down and kill foreign journalists, American journalists, who were critical or outspoken about the war. So the Ukraine Territorial Defense Forces claimed that Ashton-Cirillo statements about him wanting to kill American journalists were not approved by the command of the TDF, the Territorial Defense Forces. The Defense Forces of Ukraine strictly observe the norms of international humanitarian law. So, a couple of things I do want to play this morning. Glenn Beck. There's two types of people who cover individuals like Sarah. And Glenn Beck is one of those people. I would say that I err on the side of Glenn Beck. He accurately covers the type of person this individual is. I mean, this is somebody who had a kill list and put American journalists on a kill list who were critical of the war. All right, so let's take a listen here.
It is real. We've checked it. And no, this is really the Ukrainian spokesperson who just happens to be a trans person.
The teeth of the Russian devils will gnash ever harder, and their rabid mouths will foam in uncontrollable frenzy.
Stop. The rabid mouths are going to froth. They're going to. I'm going to give Russia such a hit in a minute. I'm going to finish this, and then I'm going to slap him across the face, all of Russia. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to look beautiful while I'm doing it.
Russia's war criminal propagandists will all be hunted down, and justice will be served.
So that's Glenn Beck. That's his reporting of this Sarah individual when he came out as the trans military spokesman for the Ukraine. And I want to contrast that now. So I've got the mainstream media and their covering of this guy. This guy is dangerous. Okay, he was sitting there gloating about how he was going to kill people, and he's under investigation by the defense forces for in the military. So it's not just me saying he's a bad dude. The military defense forces in Ukraine say this guy's kind of messed up, and we're totally for this little thing called humanitarian law, international humanitarian law, and we're not going to kill journalists for opposing the war. So let's take a listen to how the mainstream news covers this guy. I think it's important to contrast what Glenn Beck did. Glenn Beck, rightfully so, making fun of this guy because he's a nut. He's a nut. And the mainstream celebrating. Don't believe me. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Attention, also getting some recognition from officials in Las Vegas as well.
Sarah Ashton-Cirillo was honored for her work in Ukraine today at Las Vegas City Hall. She served as a war correspondent since March, and recently she enlisted as a combat medic, serving on the front lines with other soldiers. She originally went to Ukraine to write about the refugee crisis. Numerous lawmakers, including Governor Sisolak, Congresswoman Dina Titus, and Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, gave her certificates of recognition for her work overseas.
The reasons I'm fighting along with every other soldier are the reasons that the people in the United States and elsewhere can enjoy the lives they have here.
And this week, she also met with members of Congress and was even asked to give one of her military uniforms to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C.
A local reporter working on the front lines in Ukraine.
I had to play the contrast for you. So there's two types of people in the world. There's the people who are going to poke fun in a nice way. Like, he wasn't like brutal to this Sarah Ashton, although this person definitely needs to be ripped on because he's literally hunting down and threatened to hunt down and kill journalists for speaking critically of the war. And if he had it his way, everybody would be dead because You know how many people are critical of the war? 84% of Americans are critical of giving money to Ukraine and funding the war. A lot of people are against the war and they want it to stop. If he had it his way, all those people would be dead. Would be dead. So this guy deserves some poking of fun. Okay. And then there's the people who lift this guy up as some sort of hero and celebrate him. What kind of person are you? 309-451-9299. Go ahead, give me a text. We're going to come back. New York City removing George Washington statues as part of this new reparations plan. Okay. Donald Trump actually, he predicted this. He said, first they're going to start with Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson. Who's next? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. He said this in 2017. Fast forward to 2023. New York City is doing it. They're removing statues of the first United States, the President of the United States, the very first one. They're erasing history. They're taking down his statues as part of this reparations plan. That's next. Yeah, I'm sure y'all remember times that you were swatted. I grew up in an era where I never had teachers lay hands on me ever. In all of my, not even hugs, really. I don't think that I even got hugs from my teachers. I don't remember that. Now, I grew up in a rural community, and I think that the teachers understood their place. Now, my mom made a huge effort to know my teachers. And I didn't really ever act up as a child either. So I never got the paddle or never even really received discipline of any kind. I think one time I was talking in class and the teacher was talking at the same time and I had to go write my name up on the board. But I was scared to tell my mom, right? I never told my mom about that stuff, but I think at the time my teacher did tell my mom that she did that, that the teacher had me go up and write my name on the board, because I was talking in class. Now, that wasn't anything so huge. My mom didn't, I got the belt, believe me. But my mom, I don't think punished me for that. I didn't really act out a whole lot in class though. I was so into the books, it was insane. I think I was in trouble a few times for reading. My mom, I remember, took away all of my books for a week or so because I wouldn't stop reading in class. So I would read like fiction books in class as a kid. And at one point, my mom said, "You know what? I'm taking away all of your books at home. You're not reading them. You have to do your homework." And I had an issue with that. I wanted to read other things, which I look back on it now, and public school just sucks. It just sucks. There's nothing else to it. You need to pull the kid out and try to make it work. Whether that's homeschool, whether that's some sort of community schooling. I've seen it done before where I actually have some good friends, the Whitneys. They're in Pontiac. They have 12 children and they actually homeschool all 12 of their children. And what's really cool, you talk to these homeschooled kids, and I've got the clip. I mean, he's on YouTube and he does these videos, and they're like almost to the point of a Hollywood production. Like the kid with like a cell phone camera was able to create this amazing video, and he gets to do all of these really cool things because he's homeschooled and he gets to do what he loves. Okay, because he's homeschooled, and his parents understand his needs because they're with him all day, and they want to elevate his strengths. Public school is designed to create these blank slates. It really is like blank slates. If you don't sit down, shut up for 8 hours a day, there's something wrong with you. We need to medicate you. You have ADHD, ADD, whatever it is, and we're going to pump you full of medication. Okay, so it's designed for you to be a cog in their world. So yeah, I never really got disciplined. I'm sure that you guys remember this. I've got this comment. Yeah, in the day I used to get swats after school with the fraternity panel. Yeah, well, my mom talked about how she got disciplined in school all of the time. And I think parents were cool with it back then, because there was this relationship in the public school system, and public school teachers made an effort to create a relationship and a trust with that parent. Now, what we've got is, your child has 6, 7 teachers a day, and it's harder to build a relationship with 6 or 7 people. Um, that's why I'm really much for these schools. I think Full Armor Christian Academy, shout out to Cindy and Darren Bailey. The kids, they've got the same teacher from K through 12. Um, and they have the ability to teach K through 12 curriculum. And having that relationship with and keeping that circle tight of trust in raising a child is what's key. The smaller that circle is, the better I think children come out. And the better it is for everybody at the end of the day, right? It's very hard to trust 7 different people. It's easy to trust maybe 1 or 2. So if your child has maybe 1 or 2 teachers in his lifetime or her lifetime, then that trust with those 2 individuals is much, much stronger, and you would entrust a public school teacher to discipline and to show affection. Okay, now me in this current day and age, if you were to put a kid in a public school, that kid is going to have about probably 14, 15 different teachers in his lifetime. Uh, and there's no way for me to physically or even emotionally or mentally be able to handle all of those relationships with 15 different people. And it's designed for you to, not be able to have a relationship with your child's teacher. I think some parents are better at it than others, having that relationship. Some parents, they don't have a relationship with the teacher, and they might just go as far as to look at the grades after each quarter. Um, and I think that that's because we're busy. That's because inflation, costs of things are so high. Money has become a priority, and raising children just kind of has taken a back seat. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I've got Darren here in the YouTube comments. He says, yep, I used to get the paddle in middle school if I was acting out in class. I was sent to the office, and then I got home, and dad used the belt on me when I got home. Mark, he says, hey, when I was in high school, I was in shop class. I had a teacher pull my ear so hard and called me Gertrude in front of everybody. And then he says, yeah, I never acted out in class again after that. And then when I got home, I got another beating. When I got home, I would have gotten another beating. So there was this relationship between parents and teachers. And I think that there was an understanding, hey, if I'm sending my kid to you for 8 hours a day, you're going to be the one who disciplines them at some point. However, we are at a period in time where in the law, you can't do that. You can't touch children. You can't show affection. You can't discipline a child. And we have removed parents from the process of teaching children in these public schools. And parents don't like that. We don't trust what you strangers are doing inside of those public schools. And that's why there's an issue when you lay hands on my child, because I don't trust you. You're a stranger. And it never used to be that way. Your parents, teachers, there used to be a conversation that was had around maybe a dinner table or maybe just over the phone. Hey, where do you stand on these issues? What's your philosophy? Who are you as a person? That doesn't happen anymore. Okay. My mom used to know all of my teachers. But I never really acted out in school, so I don't think that there was a big issue. I remember one time I was reading in class, and I always would not pay attention. I was just always reading fiction. I was a big fiction gal, and I loved reading the books. Magic Tree House, I think, was the books of choice. And my mom said, "You know what? That's it. You guys are going to. I'm going to take the books." And you're going to pay attention in class. And when you start to pay attention in class, then I'll give you your books back. Okay. So there was obviously a conversation had because I never told my mom that I was reading in class. So obviously the teacher reached out to my mom and said, hey, she's reading in class. She's not paying attention. So then I got disciplined at home. And my teacher at the time would say, hey, get your nose out of the book, get your nose out of the book. And never like gave me discipline. I wouldn't say discipline. She just told me to stop reading. But there was obviously a conversation had between the mother and my mother and the teacher. And eventually I started to pay attention in class because I wanted to read my books at home when I got home. 309-451-9299. Let's talk about it. New York City removing the George Washington statues as part of this new reparations plan. Now, Donald Trump, he called this. He predicted it in 2017. He said they're going to start with Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson. Who's next? Is it going to be George Washington, Thomas Jefferson? This is so foolish. And I'm quoting Donald Trump in 2017 here. Fast forward 2023. There you have it. This city council, they have a cultural affairs committee, and they are hosting a public hearing on an initiative to nix any type of city property that depicts a person who enslaved persons or directly benefited economically from slavery or participated in systematic crimes against indigenous people or other crimes against humanity. Wow. That was everybody. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. That was everybody in George Washington's time because slavery was not viewed the way it is post-Emancipation Proclamation and Abraham Lincoln freeing the slaves. Okay, it just wasn't viewed in that way. And that's a very important part of history, understanding who they were as people back in the day. This set of standards would, of course, mean figures like the European explorer Christopher Columbus and America's first president, George Washington, would promptly have their statues removed throughout the city. This is New York City. In cases where a work of art is not decided to be removed, get this, the Public Design Commission. There's all kinds of affair committees, a cultural affairs committee, the Public Design Commission. What's the difference between the two? I don't understand it. Like, let's make government simple again. Can we do that? Anyway, so they have this explanatory plaque. So if you're not removing the statue, what you have to do is put a plaque beside the statue. And then it has to describe how they had slaves and how they benefited economically from slavery or how they participated in crimes against indigenous people. So if you're not removing the statue, you have to have an explanatory plaque talking about how this person's racist. Man, you'd think that, everything is hunky-dory in New York City, folks, because they're talking about removing statues and putting up plaques. Like, are you bored? Like, this is really what you're focusing your time on? And then I was like, okay, what about the overdose deaths? Can we talk about the overdose deaths? More than 3,000 deaths due to drug overdose. I bet it's more now in 2023, but this was August numbers of 2022. More than 3,000 deaths occurred in New York City during the 12 months ending in August 2022. So it was a year's worth of data. 3,000 people just dead due to drugs. And you guys are worried about statues. God, you've got to be bored. I think you got bigger problems. Do want to shift gears? Let's talk about Hunter. Aw, Hunter Biden. How cute. Aw, he's such a cutie pie. No, he's awful. So Hunter, he's got a mugshot taken. And I want the public release of that mugshot to be out there. I've got to take a break. We're going to talk about how Joe Biden, his daddy, he's planning the first ever federal gun control office. And I need to make note here that Hunter is actually indicted on gun charges. So I'm curious, will the office be going after Hunter Biden for his crimes, for his gun crimes, or nah? I'm going to guess nah, because it's always the rules for thee and not for me. I'm going to be back. Let's talk about Hunter Biden's mugshot. Jesse Waters, he was on Fox News, and I really like what he had to say here. I think it's pretty funny. So we'll be back. This is The Morning Buzz. Scott Robbins does have a segment still. He's not gone. It's just that his equipment took a poop, and we are trying to get equipment back to him. He is out of Peoria, so I'm in Bloomington. He doesn't come in studio. He does a remote bit with me in Peoria, so he lives in Peoria. And he does it from his home, his Scott's Takes. So he will be back shortly. It's just a matter of getting that equipment shipped to him and set up. So, yeah, don't worry. Scott's okay. He's coming back. We're cool. It's an equipment error. I'll come back and tell everybody about that. So, coming up, we are going to be chatting a little bit about the Biden federal office. This is the first of its kind. I'm going to look and actually see if there's anything that I've missed this morning. It's coming down out there. It's fallen. The rain is the fallen. Kind of like Joe Biden falling down the stairs of Air Force One. What's Joe Biden's favorite season? It's definitely fall. Gotcha. All right. 309-451-9299. We've got so much to cover in the 8 o'clock hour. Rumble actually responding to the UK's demand that they demonetize Russell Brand in this. I mean, this is the best screw you delivered to the British from America. So Rumble, they are continuing to show how they're continuing to show the UK government that they are not going to demonetize Russell Brand because of these 4 women. We're not sure of their names. They're claiming that over a decade ago that he sexually assaulted them, even raped them. And I don't think that this would be going on with Russell Brand had he, if he were to still be the media darling that he was in this celebrity industrial complex, the next Netflix specials that he starred in. He was an A-list comedy show actor. And I'll tell you what changed. He had a podcast, then he was talking with Tucker Carlson, and then he started speaking out against the war in Ukraine and the vaccine mandates. And that's a big no-no, and they're going to ruin your life for that. So we're going to talk about Rumble's response next on the Morning Buzz. We're going to be talking a lot about Hunter Biden in this 8 o'clock hour. The mugshot hasn't been released to the public. I want to know what's so special about the mugshot. Why can't we see it? I want to know why we can't see it. So we're going to chat about it. Plus, got to tell you about Chad Burke. He has announced that he submitted an application for the McLean County Board District 5 seat. I'm very excited. David Paul Blumenshine and Chad Burke have submitted applications, and I enjoy them both. I enjoy them both. I think that either of them would make a fine choice. It's up to Catherine Metzger to bring forward some sort of nomination. So he says that Chad Burke says that he's been talking with Republican leadership about the possibility of seeking this open board seat. He did officially submit his application yesterday at 1 o'clock. So he says that he believes in God, this country, life, liberty, freedom. And I really like what Chad says here is to ensure logical, conservative, constitutional representation is again provided to the voters that elected John McIntyre originally. So we're going to be talking about the resignation of John McIntyre. Be sure to smash this video, smash the like button on this video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Wow, this is probably one of the biggest screw yous that have ever come from Rumble. Rumble, an American company, right? And it's a letter. So this is the CEO of Rumble, and he writes the letter to the UK Parliament, he responds to the UK Parliament. So this is a letter from, I believe, the UK. So he goes, I'm writing you concerning the serious allegations. So here's what the UK said about Russell Brand. And I want to make this clear. Russell Brand used to be the darling of the media. He used to be a celebrity. He was in this media celebrity industrial complex. He did Netflix specials, starred in major releases. He was an A-list comedy actor. What changed? Now he hosts a podcast and he talks with Tucker Carlson, and he started speaking out against the vaccine mandates and against the war machine. And that's a big no-no. Okay. They'll come after you and they'll try to ruin your life. Okay. And that's what's going on because we have these 4 women, unnamed, by the way, who have claimed that there are sexual assaults, things that happen to them. And I don't know, at the end of the day, I don't know these people. I don't know Russell Brand. He does admit that he had a sexually promiscuous past, but he was very transparent about that sexual promiscuity. And he denied all of these allegations. He said everything was consensual. A decade later, we've got these women coming out and saying that he sexually assaulted them and even raped them. So a lot of these news articles where I can tell where I begin to question if these sexual allegations are real and sexual assault allegations are real is in these news articles put out there by the UK government, because let's be real here, the UK media is just the government, much like here in America, the media, the mainstream media, is just another branch of government. And they start talking about Russell Brand and all these sexual allegations, and then they hit the punchline. Okay, they say that he raped somebody and that a woman is accusing him of rape. So then the story should be about that rape. The story should be about, okay, were there police reports filed? Did she tell anybody about the rape after it happened? Is there DNA evidence? Or is there text messages between, like, what is the evidence that this rape happened? Because you hit the punchline, this woman is accusing him of rape. Rather than that, they go after Russell Brand personally, and then they start to talk about what a bully he is and how he, like, yelled at his girlfriends or was, had negative sexual experiences with these girls. So it kind of downplays the accusation of rape. And then I begin to question, why talk about that stuff? You've got the accusation. Let's talk about that accusation. But they almost like downplay it. And I don't think any of them are real. These UK media, I don't think the allegations are real. I'm just going to be honest with you. I think it's quite literally because Russell Brand talks bad about the vaccines and talks illy of the vaccine mandates specifically. And then he's very outspoken about the war in Ukraine and Russia. And this is the letter from the UK. He says, "Dear Chris," and he addresses it to the CEO of Rumble. "I'm writing you, writing concern about the concerning serious allegations regarding Russell Brand in the context of his being a content provider on Rumble with more than 1.4 million followers. The Culture, Media, and Sport Committee is raising questions with the broadcasters and production companies who previously employed Mr. Brand to examine both the culture of the industry and in the past and whether that culture still prevails today. However, we are looking at his use of social media, including on Rumble, where he issued his preemptive response to the accusation made against him by the Sunday Times and Channel 4's dispatches. While we recognize Rumble is not the creator of the content published by Mr. Brand, we are concerned that he may be able to profit from his content on that platform. We would be grateful if you could confirm whether Mr. Brand is able to monetize his content, including his videos relating to these serious accusations against him. If so, we would like to know whether Rumble intends to join YouTube in suspending Mr. Brand's ability to earn money on the platform. We would also like to know what Rumble is doing to ensure creators are not able to use the platform to undermine the welfare of victims of inappropriate and potentially illegal behavior." So Rumble responds. Okay, the Rumble of CEO said to demonetize, you can go screw off because we are not demonetizing. He says this: "We regard it as deeply inappropriate and dangerous that the UK Parliament would attempt to control who is allowed to speak on our platform or earn a living from doing so. We don't agree with the behavior of many Rumble creators, but we refuse to penalize them for actions that have nothing to do with our platform." This is the key part. Although it may be politically and socially easier for Rumble to join a cancel culture mob, doing so would be a violation of our company's values and mission. We empathetically reject the UK Parliament's demands. So UK Parliament was calling for the demonetization of Russell Brand. Okay, and I love it. I mean, Chris, the Rumble of CEO, he just says, "Screw you guys." He literally just laughed at them. You guys can suck it. I love it. I do have to talk about this. Hunter Biden, his mugshot, it's out there, but we haven't gotten it. And I want it. So Jesse Waters actually called for his mugshot to be made public. Apparently, CNN reported that back in July, he was fingerprinted and he had his mugshot taken. So pundits are demanding for the release of the Hunter Biden mugshot after the CNN report. The article reported that President Joe Biden's son plans to plead not guilty to these federal gun charges. And he actually asked for the court appearance to be held remotely. They're trying to do this very under the rug. Okay, they're trying to not make a big deal of it. But you guys, no. If Trump's mugshot is out there, I want Hunter Biden's mugshot. Period. So let's take a listen to Jesse Waters because what he has to say here is just absolutely incredible. 309-451-9299. You can always be a part of the show. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
We're also learning of a major development. It turns out Hunter Biden has a mugshot. Back in July, when Hunter first appeared in court, his lawyers say he was photographed and fingerprinted. Now, primetime sources tell us that federal inmates rarely have their mugshots released to the public, only in cases where the federal inmate escapes. And a leak would be very unlikely. The U.S. Marshals have a rigorous digital footprint. So, what is so special about a mugshot that they don't want us to see? Did he smile? Did he look defiant? In light of transparency, this mugshot must be released. Primetime has put out a Freedom of Information Act request with the Department of Justice and the U.S. Marshals to have Hunter Biden's mugshot released to the public.
Rightfully so. We should be able to see that mugshot. And they're trying to say, the media is trying to downplay it. They're trying to say, oh, well, mugshots aren't typically released in these federal charges or whatever. And it's like, wait a second. Donald Trump, his mugshot was released. We actually used the mugshot ourselves, and I think that the mugshot actually they shot themselves in the foot by releasing that mugshot, because it's only giving them more people are getting t-shirts. I've got a t-shirt coming, $20. It's got Donald Trump's face right on there, mugshot. I mean, the guy's profiting off of the mugshot. He's getting campaign donations off of the mugshot, and his polls skyrocketed after that mugshot came out. But if Donald Trump's mugshot is out there, I don't see why we shouldn't have Hunter Biden's mugshot. And I want to make this clear. Hunter Biden was indicted on felony gun charges in the state of Delaware last week after a plea deal fell through earlier this summer, where they were going to try to advocate for him to get off the hook for all kinds of charges and all future charges. Wow. And I'm sure that there were some stipulations that he had to comply with in order to get that deal. But the son, of President Joe Biden, he's accused of lying on a federal background check form in order to purchase a firearm, claiming that he was not a drug user, when in fact he revealed in his own memoir called Beautiful Things that he was in fact a drug dealer. Oh boy. Wow. It's just incredible. Now, one thing that I want to talk about too this morning is Joe Biden and this new federal office. And with that information that we now know that Hunter Biden is being indicted on these felony gun charges, you need to know that Joe Biden is planning to announce the first ever federal gun control office. So what does that mean for you? What is it? Why do we need a federal office for gun violence prevention, is what he calls it, i.e. that's really just gun control. And I love it. These gun control activists who know nothing about guns, they are going to be installed into these fluffy bureaucrat positions. I'm sure they're going to get a nice paycheck, and they're going to be installed in this federal office. I'm just curious, will the federal office go after people like Hunter Biden? Because that only seems right. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. You guys can see me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'm live in studio. Always text in at 309-451-9299. I'll be back. This just in, somebody submitted an application yesterday at 1 o'clock for the County Board District 5 seat, and that's Chad Burke. I think I'm saying that correctly. I'm going to be chatting with him a little bit later today. But Chad Burke, he says this, he wants to ensure that a logical, conservative, constitutional representation is again provided to the voters that elected John McIntyre originally. So John McIntyre, he abruptly resigned. He vacated the seat, and he has been talking, Chad Burke, with Republican leaders on filling that seat. Now, he officially has submitted an application. Now, there's 2 applications. 2 fantastic people. DPB, David Paul Blumenshine, submitted an application to become that county board district member, and then also Chad Burke. I'm cool with either. Okay. Here's why, because I think that both David Paul and Chad Burke talk about these 2 basic metrics, and will make decisions based off of these 2 very basic things. And government isn't all that hard. You got a couple of purposes in government. That's to protect the citizenry from to protect them from, unsafe streets, unsafe roads, to protect them from criminals, from violence, and to be a restrainer of evil. So you protect the citizenry, and you do that by being a restrainer of evil, and recognizing that that evil exists. So he says this, Chad Burke, he goes, I'm a simple man, God-fearing, a veteran, husband, a father, a son, and many other titles, but always trying to live without ego, just raising a family that believes in God, country, life, liberty, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness without government intervention, most of all. I love it. Chad, very excited. I'm glad that there was an excitement about filling this seat, despite, it was abruptly vacated by John McIntyre, the Honorable John McIntyre, Coach Mac, who's beloved by a lot of people in this community, Republicans, Democrats alike. So the next county board meeting is going to be interesting, because they're going to have to vote on somebody, because they had 2 seats that were vacated. It was the County Board District 8, and then you had the County Board District 5, and they filled the County Board District 8 at the last meeting with a Democrat. It has to be filled with a Democrat. It was vacated by a Democrat. It has to be filled by a Democrat. Like the County Board District 5 seat, it has to be filled with a Republican. Now, at the last meeting, they were like all tripped up on this statute that says, hey, you have to fill it within 60 days. Now, if they were to do this at the next meeting, it would have been like 8 days over the due date to fill the County Board District seat 8. It would have been like 8 days over. But the Democrats, they were saying, you need to fill it, you need to fill it, you need to fill it, because we have to follow the law. All of a sudden, they're all about law and order. Okay. There was no punishment under the law if you were to fill it after 68 days, 70 days, or something like that. There's no punishment under the law, penalty for not following that statute in the county board rules. But they followed that statute, and they filled that seat. So now what's going to happen is there is a majority Democrat county board now, and they're going to get the final say over who is the county board district member in County Board District 5. Now, I'm satisfied with both of these applicants. Me personally, I think that they would both do just a fine job. But it's not up to me. It's up to Catherine Metzger to decide who she's going to nominate and bring forward as the nominee. And eventually, they're going to have to decide on somebody that Catherine Metzger nominates for that position. Because by next meeting, it will have been 60 days that they needed to fill John McIntyre's seat. So if you want to play by those same rules, you got to play by the rules on both sides. So they're going to be forced with a decision, whether that be Chad at this point or David. We'll have to see. Do want to shift gears? Let's talk about it. Joe Biden, he's got plans to announce this federal gun office. It's the first ever of its kind. And I want to make a small note here, just a tiny little caveat. Hunter Biden was actually indicted on gun charges. Okay, now let's move on. We should be able to talk about this federal office, this gun. If you're serious about gun control and preventing gun violence, Joe Biden, then it should extend to your son, shouldn't it? The rules should apply to him. So here we go. We've got President Joe Biden. He's expected to announce this on Friday. this Federal Office of Gun Violence Prevention. The move would be a victory for gun control activists who know nothing about guns. Okay, no, I don't know a whole lot about guns. I've shot a gun a few times. I like to go out onto the range. I shoot typically handguns. I will say that my favorite gun to shoot is a 12 gauge double barrel shotgun. The blast on that is just so much fun. And I'm pretty accurate with it. I would say I'm more accurate with that than a 9mm Glock is what else I practice on. So these gun control activists, they don't know anything about guns. They don't know anything about gun laws. But this is going to be a victory for them because they're all going to be lining their pockets because Joe Biden, since his election, has been called on these gun activists and these gun groups, these gun control groups, to step up and ban assault weapons, so-called assault weapons, or do this universal background check thing. And they want him to take it to a federal level. So here in the state of Illinois, commie Illinois, we've got a so-called assault ban, weapons ban, that was upheld by the Illinois Supreme Court. In the news this morning, you've been hearing that Tom DeVore is going after it again. So we'll have to see, but the Illinois Supreme Court probably will uphold whatever the law again. They upheld the Safety Act. They upheld the gun grab. So I wouldn't be shocked if they just keep upholding these unconstitutional laws. But what Joe Biden wants to do is he wants to take everything that JB has done in the state of Illinois and do it at a federal level. So Stephanie Fieldman is her name. She's a Joe Biden aide, and she's expected to lead this office, along with Justice Action Fund's Greg Jackson is his name. And then we also have an Everytown for Gun Safety, Rob Wilcox. So these are a couple of gun advocates. These are two prominent gun control groups, leaders in those groups, and they're expected to hold key roles in this office. So in other words, these are a bunch of unelected bureaucrats that are going to be deciding the fate of your freedoms. And the Democrat Party is very simple. Hey, you gun control activists, I know you go out there and you get the vote out for us every single time for the Democrat Party at the local level, state level, federal level. I know that you guys get the vote out for us every single time. Don't worry. Once we get in, we're going to return the favor and we're going to provide you with a nice cushion job and we're going to pay you the taxpayer money. Yeah, 100%. That's all this is. This is them giving their friends jobs using your money. Okay. And not to mention Joe Biden's sole mission is to go after your Second Amendment rights. Okay. So last year he ratified the first major federal gun control bill in 30 years. So he ratified it, and then he created this little bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which is so ironic because JB Pritzker, Jellybean, he has a Safer Communities Act, and it's so funny that they call it the Safer Communities Act because it's not going to make communities safer. And I'll get into those numbers in just a second. But what this act does, Joe Biden's act specifically, it funds red flag laws. So states' red flag laws. So it gives extra funding to states that have red flag laws and do background checks for gun purchasers. So we as a state, Illinois, because I'm sure we have red flag laws. I don't know them exactly. I know we have background check things, laws. We probably get funding from the Fed now under this bipartisan Safer Communities Act. So John Lott, who's the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, and Thomas Massey, who represents Kentucky's 4th Congressional District, and he also doubles as the co-chair of the Second Amendment Caucus, has said that this innocuous-sounding BSCA, so the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, will radically change gun ownership, and that this will implement universal background checks on all gun purchases and track virtually everyone who gets a gun. Hopefully, this legislation is going to stop people like Joe Biden's kid, Hunter, right, who's currently facing some federal charges here related to false statements made on a federal application to purchase a firearm. He lied. He claimed that he didn't use drugs when he was using drugs, and then he purchased a handgun. He uses crack cocaine. He admits that in his own memoir. Obviously, the real problem is not with guns. The problem is with these criminal thugs taking over Democrat cities and turning them into war zones. Okay, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to dig through Chicago statistics about guns and the Chicago gun laws that are on the books currently right now. Somehow, Chicago has some of the most strict gun laws, gun control laws in the nation, yet people are killing each other left and right. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, wait, yes, it does. Because people kill people, guns don't kill people. We don't say car violence because cars don't kill people. People driving the cars kill people. Okay. I'm going to be back. This is The Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. You can even subscribe at YouTube. That's Kat Peterson 929. A few of you have asked about Scott Robbins. Scott Robbins will be back. I want to make that clear. He comes on with me for Scott's Takes at about 7:35 Monday through Friday. He's going to be back. It's just that he's dealing with equipment issues, and we're going to be fixing those and getting him back on the air. So if you guys are missing Scott, he'll be back shortly. I'll be back on the other side. We've got a few things to talk about locally here. The El Paso bus driver is now facing misdemeanor battery charges, along with this Michael Troll. He's a U-High teacher who was substituting, and apparently he laid some hands on a child, and he's facing battery charges as well. So we'll chat about that next. When people talk about people who die in car crashes, they don't talk about car violence because cars don't kill people. Okay. People driving cars kill people. People kill people. It's really sad. It's tragic. Uh, and I think the Biden administration is just confused. Okay. The intention of the Second Amendment was not meant to give people the right to bear arms. It's already given to us by God, endowed by a creator. That's the way it reads, shall not be infringed. It's not meant for the government. Uh, it's not meant to stop the government from trying to take that away. Okay. The shall not be infringed part is not shall not be infringed by the government. No, it shall not be infringed by anyone because that right is given to you by God. The intention of the Second Amendment was not meant to give people the right to bear arms. That's not up for question. Okay, it shouldn't even be a question. I just think the Biden administration is confused about that one. But go ahead, create an office filled of unelected bureaucrats because that makes total sense and totally does not seem like you're trying to take away our freedoms. Hey, this is the morning buzz. It's falling down out there. It's really fallen. The rain, 63 degrees, heavy rain, a little bit. It seems like it might be lightening up a bit, but it definitely was falling hard this morning. Falling harder than Joe Biden down the steps of Air Force One. So I did want to chat a little bit about Chicago, and some of the statistics here about gun violence, so-called gun violence. Obviously, the real problem isn't with guns, it's with these criminal thugs taking over these Democrat-run cities and really turning them into war zones. Look no further than Chicago. In January, a coalition of 117 groups sent a letter to the president demanding that the creation of a federal office of gun violence prevention. And the reason why they want this federal office of gun violence prevention is because they claim that gun deaths impact Black and brown communities. Yeah. Death. I mean, homicide victims, 54% of homicide victims are of the Black and brown communities. About 6 in 10 crime guns seized by the Chicago police originated from gun shops outside of Illinois. According to a 2017 report, law enforcement defines crime guns as those that are illegally possessed, used, or suspected to be used in furtherance of a crime. In 2013, the Chicago Police Department recovered 7,000 crime guns each year. Since 2013, since 2013. So 7,000 crime guns each year after that. One study even said that young men living in Chicago, they're in the most violent neighborhoods, like the South Side, the West Side, faced the risk of dying from a shooting more than that of a soldier at war. So you have a higher likelihood of dying from a shooting in Chicago than that of a soldier in active combat, like in war. Chicago has some of the reason why I bring this up, the most strict gun control laws in the nation. And yet people are killing each other over left and right. I mean, we're seeing that happen in Chicago. Illinois already requires things like universal background checks, bans. They've got bans on ghost guns, so-called ghost guns. They also have like a lot of red tape in getting your concealed carry and all of the nonsense that the leftist loves. We have it here in the state of Illinois and in Chicago, yet it's the worst. It's the most violent. So obviously, that does not work because criminals don't care about your gun laws. Okay? It's so dumb how progressives really try and claim that guns are the problem and not criminals. It's a joke. And like I said, you have to restrain evil if you're going to be in some sort of role of government. Your job is to protect the citizenry and restrain evil. And the problem is Joe Biden, Democrats, they don't believe evil exists. They don't believe humans are capable of evil. They say if we throw enough money at it, or if we create enough legislation, then eventually this guy's going to be okay. No, that's not true. Humans are capable of evil. That's a reality that we live in. And you have to act accordingly. Lock them up. If they kill somebody with a gun, you need to lock them up and lock them away for, if not for life, 20 to life. Okay, that I truly do believe that. I mean, if you kill someone, you should not see the light of day. Uh, I do have to shift gears. I want to talk about a couple of things locally here. El Paso bus driver. She sees a misdemeanor on battery charges. So battery charges, that is misdemeanor, as it is defined in Illinois law, it's the provoking or the act of aggression and making that physical contact. So you can be aggressive with somebody and yelling at them, but as the moment you make that physical contact, that's when it is battery. So we're seeing that out of the El Paso story. This bus driver, Caitlin, in Woodford County Police, that's where those charges are. And then you look at the full-time teacher. He was a full-time teacher, but now he's a substitute teacher at U High this morning. This just came across the desk. He was accused of battery for a classroom incident on Tuesday. Wow. And you're beginning to see it. You're beginning to see the problem with public schools. And I know that people are angry. I have had people texting me and they're like, Kat, how could you say such a thing? Pull your kids out of public school and this wouldn't happen. I'm just going to be honest with you, where teachers lay their hands on your students. When they're there for 8 hours a day, humans have this biological innate urge to raise children and to raise them up to be good human beings. And sometimes that's discipline, sometimes that's love and affection. Either or, it's inappropriate for a stranger to discipline and show love and affection for your child because you don't trust that stranger. Okay. It used to be back in the day. My mom, she used to get the ruler on her hand. I had people messaging me all this morning that, hey, when I was in school, this is what happened to me. I had a teacher grab my ear. Yeah. And the reason why all of that was going on and the reason why parents were okay with it was because there was communication happening between the parents and the teacher. And I'm just going to be frank with you. There's parents out there who don't know the first name of their teacher, of the teacher of their child. Okay. Have you invited the teacher over for dinner? Have you talked with the teacher about philosophical views? Have you made it a priority? Because this person or people are going to be involved in a majority of your kids' life. 8 hours a day is a lot. Okay. And I think that a lot of people are really upset when I say that. And I am so against public school teachers laying hands on children. But I do understand where teachers they might feel the need to touch children, and either that be in an affectionate way, give them a hug. They reach out for a hug. They're a small child. They need a hug in that moment. The teacher feels like they have to have that hug. They're going to hug them. If this kid is throwing, in my case, I actually was a student teacher for a little bit, throwing tissue boxes at all the girls and making them cry. You might want to grab them by that and say, "What are you doing?" Flick them, or something like that. That's a biological thing that you're gonna want to do because you're a human, and that's why the public school system is so evil and wrong and messed up because it's designed to not let us act on those biological urges to raise children, and we have removed parents from the process completely. So there is no trust between parents and teachers anymore. So I don't know. I think that this is just going to progressively become a bigger and bigger problem. So Michael Troll, he was the one who laid hands on a child. None of the kids were seriously injured. Jack, he's been dealing with a lot of emotional and mental things per his mother, Amanda, who gave us the video footage of the bus driver actually laying hands on Jack and pushing his head back. So she is also facing misdemeanor charges as a bus driver. I think it's going to be a problem. You're starting to see it more and more in the community. And the answer, you're going to hate it. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't want to do this. You got to pull them out. You got to pull them out. Try to make it work. I know it's tough because government, society has made it impossible for you to be able to pull your kid out of public school. And I know it's rough. It's rough. I know. All right. You guys have well, I've got one more story to share with you in the fourth segment here. It's about a mayor in Yakima, and she called 911 on some so-called far-right activists. Guess what these far-right activists were doing? They were collecting signatures for ballot initiatives. It's hilarious. I'll be back next. All right. Well, I'm not going to get to that story. It's a little bit too long, but just the headline for you. This Yakima mayor, she called 911 on the so-called far-right activists. She called 911 because she didn't want them petitioning. They were gathering signatures for these ballot initiatives. She didn't want them doing that outside of this Walmart. So she calls 911 to try to get them booted from Walmart. But it turns out under Washington law that, hey, actually, you have the right to political speech. You have the right to gather signatures in a private place, and Walmart can't kick you out just because you're collecting. It extends to political speech and political activities. So, Mayor Karen, I'm sorry, you're silly. You're silly, and you called 911 because people were collecting signatures for ballot initiatives, and ballot initiatives, I mind you, that are not in any way far right. I've got to go. You guys have a great rest of your day. Glenn Beck is up after me. Dan Bongino. Then we've got Sean Hannity and Mark Levin. Then Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins with Scott Robbins later tonight at 8 o'clock. Bye-bye. Love you.